Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and what the hell is this? Yes, you're looking at it right now. This is Little Nicky on the Game Boy Color. This is not a ROM hack or a bootleg or anything like that. It actually has a development team, a publisher, and it was even rated by the ESRB. So yes, they really did turn this fucking movie into a game. Now, before we start talking about the game, I just want to mention one quick thing, and that is, yes, turning an Adam Sandler movie into a game just seems beyond weird. And while I do think that as an actor, or producer, or screenwriter, or whatever the hell else that he does, I really don't like much of his stuff. Now, yeah, there were a couple good ones that he's done before, like Big Daddy, The Longest Yard, Click even had some good moments. And I'll even say Blended. Yeah, for the most part that movie was pretty shitty, but the one thing that did make it worth watching was the part with Terry Crews. Then again, Terry Crews acting ridiculous is always a fun time. But as for Little Nicky, I will admit, this movie was pretty funny. Now, yeah, it is pretty damn retarded, but it definitely does have some pretty funny shit in it. So yes, the movie is about Nicky, who is the son of the devil, and Nicky has to return to Earth because there is two demons that left Hell but went up going onto Earth. So they weren't really supposed to do that, so by the words of the devil himself, he tells you that you had to go get their asses back in there. So that's the basic of what you need to know about the movie in case you haven't seen it before. And surprisingly enough, this game actually follows the movie quite well, but I'm not going to get too much into that just yet because it feels like I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So the game was being developed by Digital Eclipse and published by Ubisoft, and it's only released on the Game Boy Color and it came out in the year 2000. And in case you're wondering what type of game this could be, well, it's actually a platformer game if you couldn't believe it. So there's not a whole lot else I can say about the story, since like I already said, it follows it quite well. It even has like the whole beginning part with the guy stalking the girl and ends up dying. And after going to hell, he ends up being chased by a horny giant bird. So I think that's enough proof to show you guys that yes, this does follow the movie pretty well. So in this platformer game, you just gotta go from one end of the screen to the next end of the screen, and well, that's really all you have to do for your objective. And of course there are random obstacles you have to avoid, and if you stop in front of a chicken stop, then you get to be able to run faster. And jump much higher, but only for a short period of time, then once you re-land on it again, then it fills back up. And other than that, you really don't have much else to do in this game because you can't attack things, you can't jump on them or anything. It's so basic of a game that there's not much else to say here, although there are some mini-games that do happen within the game. So I guess that kinda makes up for the monotony? Well, we'll have to see about that. So there are two mini-games that are very similar with each other because they're both shooting gallery types. For one, you get to shoot at ducks because, you know, that hasn't been done like a million times already, and then the other one, you got to shoot pineapples at Hitler. Which is kind of funny to think about since it is something that did happen in the movie, but it does get old very quickly. And then there's the dartboard one, which is exactly what it is, darts. And then there's one where you gotta put a face together, and then I guess you get to print it out, because yes, the Game Boy Color did have a printer attachment. But if you don't have the printer attachment, which is something I just never see around all the time, then, well, I guess it really has no purpose. And then the last mini-game that you have here is a fishing game, and you use the pervert guy as bait. And it's really not all that exciting. Now you're probably wondering why it feels like I'm rushing through this one. It's not like I'm trying to rush through it, it's more like the fact that this game really doesn't have a whole lot of things I can really say about. But one thing I will say that is kind of funny is that while you're doing the training course, they actually really made it look like that's a bunch of like cardboard cars like hooked onto hooks, which is kind of amusing. That's really the only unique charm that this game really has. Oh, and of course, the walk cycle in this game is also pretty damn funny. Then again, Little Nicky in the movie also did walk pretty funny as well. So not much else to say, but now let's start talking about the controls, and all I have to say here is that they are what you might expect, pretty damn bad. Now the button layout is very easy to understand. All you gotta do is just move around, you jump, and that's literally it. Now the walking is pretty slow at responding, same thing with the jumping, but probably the worst thing I have to say about the controls happens to be the jumping detection. Because jumping onto other ledges, you have to be very, very precise, and that's really not a good thing, especially within a platformer. So it's really hard to make your mark, and that is just fucking shitty. So overall, the controls are just not very good. Now, as for the game's graphics, I will have to say, the graphics for this game are actually pretty good for Game Boy Color. Like, at least you can tell what everything is, the theme suits it very nicely, and all the character sprites are pretty damn funny. Now, with all the nice things that I'm saying about the graphics, well, it may not be like the most appealing game to look at on the Game Boy Color, but it definitely is not as bad as I was thinking it was going to be. But I am giving it some fair credit since it does suit the theme very well. Mainly because it looks very cartoonish, which does work for a comedy being turned into a video game, which is just weird to think about, but yeah, it's really the most sense I can really make out of it. So overall, when it comes to the graphics, I think they look fine the way they are. Now, as for the game's music, the music in this game could have been very good, but unfortunately there are some little fuck-ups here. So the good part about it is that it has a very metal-sounding soundtrack, and trying to do that on a Game Boy Color is pretty ambitious, so I will give them credit for that. And the way that the songs go are also very well done, but the thing that's really shitty about them is the sound quality, because it sounds very scratchy and high-pitched, and it just really doesn't work as well. It's a shame too, because some of the beats for these songs actually sound pretty great. It's just unfortunate that the quality of it has to taint the whole thing. So unfortunately, it was a missed opportunity, but I will give them credit that at least they did try. Now, probably the best part about this game would have to be the voiceovers. Yes, this game actually does use voice clips from the movie. So whenever you die and go back to hell, your dad ends up telling you, "Get back up there, Nicky!" Or when you die, Nicky ends up saying, "Wow, I gotta call a mulligan on this one." Yeah, I'm not even gonna bother trying to imitate his voice because he just sounds so damn ridiculous in the movie. But yeah, the sound quality from these voices actually do sound pretty good for what they are. Now, if you want to buy this game, this is a very cheap game, so the lowest I've seen it for was about $5, and the most I've seen it for was about, like, $20. So most of the $5 ones were loose ones, and then the complete in box copies were about $10 to $15, and of course the $20 ones are sealed ones. So for me personally, I wouldn't pay more than $10 for this game. As for $5, well, it would have to be on a day that I really have nothing else to buy, but even then, even that would be stretching it. Now, I don't recall ever seeing this game in person before, but I can't imagine it being super hard to find or anything like that. Then again, I only heard about this game when I just stumbled upon it randomly and I was like, what the fuck, they made this into a game? So yes, it's a very cheap game, and I can see why it is that way. So now, as for my overall thoughts on the game, it's pretty typical movie license shit garbage, but it's still not the worst movie license game I ever played. But that's not saying much. But it's mostly the controls with the jumping detection that really makes this game really shitty. And the fact that there's not a whole lot of variety and it's just so bare bones that it's really just fucking boring. And I really just don't have any other reason to play this game other than just to see how the hell it turned out. And well, I did that just now and it just happens to suck. Now, one quick thing I do want to mention here is that, just out of curiosity, I wanted to see what some of these online gaming sites said about this game, and well, just take a look at this right here.
Oh.
That's right, this is not photoshopped whatsoever. IGN ended up giving this game an 8.5 out of 10. Like, really? Did the people at IGN just ended up, like, not giving a shit about this game, so they're like, we'll just give it an 8? No one will end up buying this game anyway. I mean, who the hell buys movie license games, especially one that happens to be on the Game Boy Color of all things? Because it really seems like that the Game Boy Color had a lot of weird shit. I mean, they even made an NSYNC game on the Game Boy Color, if you can believe it, and no, I'm not going to review that in this video. But maybe at a later time when I just have nothing else to review about. But anyways, Little Nicky on the Game Boy Color is just not a good game whatsoever. Now, I will give it some credit that it did have some ambitious ideas, but it just wasn't all done that well. So I guess you could say that you could put this game into a flask, but not just any ordinary flask, but a flask filled with shit. And speaking of Adam Sandler and video games, wouldn't it be kind of funny if they made Pixel into a video game? It would just be so weird. Well anyways, I never seen that movie, and I really don't have any desire to because it just doesn't look all that great. But I don't know, man. Let's just move on so I can finally talk about a game that's actually worth putting to the spotlight. So anyways, that'll be the end of this review, so thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day.